Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen.
I'm so happy to hear my name called. It's truly a dream come true.
Super excited. I'm ready to roll.
68-yard attempt. Ball's intercepted. The game is over. And the pass is caught. No.
The next head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be than right here, right now.
You know, I'm trying to just focus on being the best quarterback that I can be right now.
Welcome to Draft Day, everyone. Thank you for watching. Leading the charge, Matt Bove, Joe Buscaglia here. New backdrop this year. We're normally in front of that stadium. Now we're in front of this stadium because the people they draft tonight will play inside the new building, which is pretty crazy. All right, we're going to get to some names that you need to keep an eye on in just a minute here, but let's start by showing you the picks the Bills are scheduled to make as of 7:31 on Thursday, because who knows how this ultimately plays out. The Bills have 7 picks total, but what you'll notice, only 2 picks in the top 100 because they traded away their second-round pick for DJ Moore, so maybe there will be some movement. But what names do you need to know and what positions do you need to be paying attention to? Like I said, Joe Buscaglia from The Athletic, our Leading the Charge contributor. I asked you a couple days ago, hey, give me some names that I think people need to pay attention to. Very edge rusher heavy. Do you feel like that's the way this is going to fall?
I feel like it has a good chance because it kind of lines up with what the Bills might need for Jim Leonard's new defense and the overall structure and the overall strength of the draft, which is edge rusher heavy. There's a bunch of names in there around that late first round range that I think could be available to them that could give them something that really they don't have to this point. And you can't rule out them potentially taking a defensive lineman too, or someone who has the potential to do a bit of both. So I think there's a lot of different elements at play.
Right now, would you bet, though, edge rusher? Like if they're with their first pick, and it doesn't even have to be at 26, it could be if they move back.
The way I look at the draft is probabilities. Yeah. And the highest probability to me, just based on the class and their needs overall, would be edge rusher. But if you sit here and tell me they took a defensive lineman or a wide receiver, it's a lower probability in my mind, but I wouldn't be surprised by any stretch.
So one of the names that you have been constantly tying to the Bills these last couple weeks is Malachi Lawrence from UCF. What should people know about him? Because admittedly, not somebody I'm super familiar with.
Yeah, Malachi Lawrence from UCF, he's very intriguing in terms of like an overall all-around skill set. He's got speed, he's got explosiveness. You look at his testing between his 10-yard split, his broad jump, and his vertical, all 95th plus percentile on those measurements. And then threshold-wise, wingspan, arm length, he passes the test for what the Bills usually look for, and he would give them just that explosiveness that they really lack with their starters in Greg Rousseau and Bradley Chubb. So I think he's an intriguing name to kind of keep in mind, but he's getting even more steam now that he might not even be on the board by the time they get on the clock at 26.
Yeah, so I saw the Cowboys, some interest there. I saw a couple other teams that would make sense. So he's kind of the buzzy name now. Right. It felt like a month ago the buzzy name was Cassius Howell. Yeah. Is that still somebody that could make sense for them?
Oh, absolutely. It's just, we heard Brandon Beane earlier this week talk about thresholds and that being like arm length, because Cassius Howell has the shortest wingspan by about 3 inches of any other edge rusher, and that's a big thing because you're going up against long-armed offensive tackles, and so that could be a bit of an impediment to what he's trying to do. So, but in terms of speed, explosiveness, bend around the edge, they don't have anyone like him. So if they can look past it, or they can say, okay, he can win even though he's got this short wingspan, then he could absolutely be in the discussion. And keep in mind, Jim Leonard in Denver and what they look for in edge rushers, explosiveness, 10-yard split, incredible times there. That's what they have in Nick Bonito. That's what they have in Jonathan Cooper.
I was going to say a little Nick Bonito there. Obviously, Nick Bonito's a really elite player. Okay, so those are two guys that people have tied to the Bills. Give me a name that's, I don't want to say off the radar, but maybe hasn't been talked about as much with the Bills.
I really like the idea of Keldrick Falk from Auburn.
See, his range of outcomes I see is all over the place. Like I see people have him at 15 and people have him at 45.
It's because the potential doesn't match the overall tape of what he was, but you look at the size, it's incredible. He's like 274 pounds, 6'5", super long arms. In the Bills' defense, I think he'd be kind of a hybrid between an outside linebacker or maybe even just solely a defensive end in their scheme, which is more like on the offensive tackle, trying to edge contain and occasionally provide some pressure. But he's someone, ball of clay, super young, just turned 21 years old. Like he is exactly the type of player that you could see Brandon Beane going, okay, I really like this guy.
Yeah.
And he would definitely fit a need for them.
Very quick, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, is it a chance?
I think it's a chance. It depends on who's there. I think it really depends on if the skill set of the player that is there is something that they don't have on the roster. So guys like Casey Concepcion, Jordan Tyson, those are the two guys I think would be most conducive to a wide receiver pick. But if you're looking at the other guys, I have some hesitation, but never say never with how the wide receiver group was the past 2 years.
All right, so plenty more to talk about, and we're going to be joined by Brandon Beane and coming up in just a little bit. Joe and I are outside of the new stadium, but it also feels like now is a good time to show you inside the stadium. So for more on that, my colleague Jeff Russo is taking you inside the new building.
It's the first night of the NFL Draft, and as the Buffalo Bills get ready to add building blocks to their roster, construction continues here on the team's future home. I'm told work on the new Highmark Stadium is now more than 95% complete. They just added new signage, exterior signage here in Orchard Park. It was just last month that I had a chance to go inside this brand new facility with team officials and wanted to take you along for the tour.
Really excited to show you guys everything.
7 News getting an up-close look at the new Highmark Stadium, a progress report on the $2.2 billion facility. Inside, the experience starts the moment you walk in, with an open concourse revealing a breathtaking first view of the Stadium Bowl and the field.
Majority of the seats are in at this point. The only seats that aren't in are the ones that were kind of strategically left out for sequencing.
Populous helped us with this gradient pattern where we go from red to blue in the different sections. It's a lot of fun. There's really no rhyme or reason behind it. It's purely random.
Meantime, video boards and sports lighting have already been installed, along with hundreds of speakers aimed at enhancing the game day experience.
The sound system here is literally state of the art, and there's speakers that'll be pushing into the concourse.
The Bills say progress inside the stadium is moving quickly. One of the stadium's massive pregame gathering spaces for suite holders is taking form, connecting directly to suites that look straight out onto the field. But one of the most finished areas of the new facility is downstairs, where a large staircase and escalator takes you to field level and the Field Club, designed to bring fans closer to the action.
The whole idea in here is it's a lot of fun, high energy, and then access to the team.
The Field Club is a premium area that can hold up to 1,200 fans who have seats in the 100 level directly above. It'll feature food and drink options, TVs, a DJ booth, and a front row seat to the tunnel, used by players to get to and from the locker room.
So you'll have the ability for the full team to walk past you. Very high-tech LED system built within that wall.
And just steps away, the star of the show, the natural grass field installed last fall. And it's from this vantage point that you can really get a sense of the stacked design of the stadium.
We sometimes describe it feels like a large hockey arena and less like a giant football stadium.
The seats almost feel like they're right on top of you. You can tell just how loud it's going to be in here.
We're still trying to figure out exactly how loud it's going to be, because it's going to be incredibly loud, given the refraction of the sound and the sound system and all of that. So it's really good to be down here and kind of sense that.
Bills fans will also soon get a sense of the new bison statues that will occupy Family Circle outside of the new stadium. The installation will include a family of 3 bison. The largest, the bull, will stand 27 feet tall and 29 feet long. In terms of the construction schedule, I'm told the project's still on track for substantial completion by June 1st. In Orchard Park, Jeff Russo, 7 News.
All right, everyone, getting ready for the NFL Draft. First round, less than an hour away, and we are joined by Buffalo Bills General Manager, President of Football. I'm going to say the whole thing, Brandon Beane. Happy Draft Day.
Yeah, good to be here, man.
How do you prepare for a Draft Day?
Yeah, I mean, like today is just it's like hurry up and wait. It really is. It's a long day, and obviously it starts at 8, but we're not picking for a while. It's a good problem to have. It's frustrating to watch players come off the board every year, but we want to be picking 32. We're close, but we got to get it over the top. But it's just a long hurry up and wait, and you kind of have to see how the picks kind of fall down before you make a decision what you want to do.
We'll start with wide receiver. We were talking about it a little bit ago. What do you think of this wide receiver class?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of numbers. I don't think it's strong at the top necessarily, but I think there are a number of receivers that will get get taken in this draft. And I think there's a wide variety. There's big and physical. There's smaller and fast. There's some taller, lean, straight line fast. A lot of these guys what are their, if they're not going to be a starter, what are their roles? Do they have fourth down value? Are they punt returners? Are they gunners? Like, where else can they fill a role? Because, you can draft a guy that has these traits, but until they learn the offense, or who are they going to beat out, how do you get them a jersey?
Yeah, how about edge rushers? Because edge rushers is a position, you guys have been tied to a lot. I know you got two that you really, really like, but it's also a new defense and a new defensive coordinator. What do the edge rushers look like in this year's draft?
Yeah, I do think there's some guys. I think there's some depth there, starting in round one and kind of moving down. So we'll see how that falls, but I think there could be some opportunities for us in this draft. Can't tell you which round necessarily. We have to see how it falls. But, I do think there's depth there. We're talking earlier. I think there's some inside backers too this year. Some years that can be a thinner class. I would say that's a deeper class. There's some safeties in this class as well. So I think there's some guys on defense that we can add at various points that can add to our team this season.
Some of the draft experts have kind of put out there, I say experts loosely, but some of the draft experts have put out there positional value is not a thing this year. Throw that out the window. Do you buy that?
No, I think that's not fair. I mean, positional value still matters, but you got to take good football players too. You're not just going to say, "Hey, I'm taking this." Left tackle is a high position value. Just when his play is not nearly what a guard, who maybe his value is not as high from a position rank standpoint. I think you still got to make sure you're taking good football players that fit your team, fit what you do.
For you guys, when you think about this draft, when you think about what you want to accomplish, what do you need to be successful at to consider this? Hey, we're really happy with this draft. What do you guys got to hit on?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I said it the other day in my presser, we don't need to try to hit homers. We need to hit singles, doubles, triples if they're there. Add depth. I mean, of course you want starters. Who doesn't? We traded our, the 60th pick in the draft for a starting wide receiver. So we know already we got one pick. We feel really good about. Which, listen, that's great. It'll stink tomorrow night when we don't have that pick, but we know what we have. What can we do in the third round with that pick? The fourth, we have a couple of fifths. Like, what can we get there to add to this team? Add depth, add competition. And listen, you'd love to say, hey, I added a back end guy now, on day 3 that can become a future starter for us.
I don't necessarily expect you to give me just like a flat answer, but the other day when we talked to you for your press conference, you said it was on the lower end of first round grades that you have. So that makes me think in two directions. If it's on the lower end, maybe they're more likely to trade up to try and secure one of those guys, or you could say they don't realistically have a shot at one, so maybe it makes more sense to move back. How do you weigh that? Because I'm sure that is a very real dilemma you guys are probably dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, we got to watch it come off, and we got to see. I'll tell you, the year we took Greg Rousseau, we had a lower number that year as well, and he was the last first-round grade we had on board for at least 10, 11 picks.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact number, and I saw Greg in the weight room today, and we were talking. In a crazy draft day, and he said he was literally just talking to his parents, and I told him that story, how I thought I was going to be trading out or trying to trade out, and he just kept staying there, and we landed him. So we'll be patient. We'll watch the board. If we our board gets cleaned out and we realize at 26 we're probably going to be picking out of our second round. At that point, you look and see, does something make sense? If it doesn't, we'll still get a really good football player. It just may not have first-round value.
If you were going to trade back, is this like a marginal trade back? Would you jump back a ton if the value was good, or do you still want to have one of those higher second-round picks?
It's hard to say. I mean, listen, you got to weigh every deal. And if we think there's a good deal to go back 10 spots, we'll do that. When you do that, you may lose some guys. If there's just a deal you can't turn down to go back, I'm making it up, 18 spots. You're just like, man, look what we could do with this. We'll do it, but we'll weigh them all. They're all assets, and so it's our job to weigh what we think we can get. We'll be looking at the board. We'll make some decisions. What group of players do we think we'd be looking at to go in this scenario to go all the way back to 18, and then make the best decision for the Bills.
Up to this point, how do you like the offseason? What are you most excited about as you've kind of retooled this team?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we kept some continuity. We lost Dave Edwards, but we kept Connor McGovern. We brought back Alec Anderson. We brought in some guys like Austin Corbett, Lloyd Cushenberry, who's played mainly center but can play guard. So I feel like we've, even though losing Dave Edwards, I feel like we're good there. We've got our tight ends back, our running backs, our receivers, and we added DJ Moore to the group last year. So I like what we've done there. Bradley Chubb, who's been here 3 weeks now in our offseason program, massively impressed with his leadership, his presence. He's got a way about him. Guys kind of attract themselves, to him. Chauncey Gardner, you can see his edge out there. They were doing a competition the other day, and you could feel it, man, his juice. And so that's one of the things that's attractive about him. And so we feel like we've added some pieces. D. Alford, that's a nickel first, but we think he has versatility to play outside. We think we got some pieces, and tonight's another opportunity, and this weekend to add some more depth players for this team in 26.
Good luck.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, that's Brandon Beane, General Manager and President of the Buffalo Bills. Welcome back, everyone. Matt Bove now joined by Elena Getzenberg from ESPN. Earlier in the show, we heard from Joe Buscaglia. We were talking a lot about the edge rushers the Bills could potentially take. But it also feels like it's a year where there's a lot of different positions this team could address. What would be the next most likely thing you think the Bills could do tonight?
So there's a couple of ways we can go about this. I think the fun one for fans watching at home would be wide receiver, right? Like, I think that's the position that we've heard fans be really excited about, want change at wide receiver still, even with the DJ Moore trade. And I don't think that can be ruled out. I do think this position specifically is one where, like, where's the board going to go, like, at wide receiver? How many are going to get taken? Will the Bills kind of want to – I don't think we see them get aggressive. That's where I think it gets difficult is you used your second-round pick on DJ Moore, and trading up and using more capital to get a wide receiver doesn't seem as likely. Other positions that probably are not as exciting, maybe defensive tackle is definitely one to watch. And then defense, really. I think it's way more of a defense for the Bills. We've seen them kind of under this new scheme with Jim Leonard. They need to make changes, and I think linebacker, while that may be one if they trade back, maybe more likely, that's certainly one to watch. And safety seems like a sneaky one, but less likely maybe to keep an eye on. But there's really, this draft is kind of weird. We're like, we could see them go a lot of ways, and yes, edge rusher is one that makes a lot of sense, but you can make a case for a few different positions, really.
Here's the thing I get to with defensive tackle, because it does feel like that's a very likely option. Last year it's TJ Sanders, and it was Deion Walker, and it was Dwayne Carter the year before. It's a position that they've invested in. I know those aren't the types of tackles they're looking for, but like eventually, aren't you done taking defensive tackles?
Yes, I think that's a great point. But one thing I do, and I think that's why it's less likely, but one thing I always go back to is how many times have we heard Brandon Beane say, and this was with Sean McDermott, obviously, but how much they prioritize those lines, and they want to get those lines right. And obviously this is a new scheme, and they invested really heavily in there in last year's draft, but you just can't rule it out because of that, because of how important Brandon Beane thinks those lines are. I just think it's a spot you can't rule out if the right guy is sitting there.
Let me ask you, last one before we get to our predictions. Give me a position you think they should draft. Not that you think they will, but you think they should.
Early?
Yes.
I mean, I know Joe talked about it a lot before. I really do think it is edge rusher. I'm going to agree with him there. I actually don't think it should be wide receiver unless it's the perfect guy who does not fit what they already have on the roster, because then it's going to get kind of messy, and I don't know if that's really the right fit for where this roster is at the moment. We could have a long Keon Coleman conversation that we don't have time for today, but I do think getting this defense right and building it as they're going into this new scheme is really important.
Okay. So, at the end of the show, for the last 5 years, we always give our predictions. And for the last 5 years, somebody has been right basically every single year. A couple years it's been me, but I've just taken Joe's backups. So I don't necessarily have Joe's backup this time around, but we shall see. So, give me a prediction of how tonight goes, whether that's a player or foreshadowing something else. Elena, you can start.
So, yes, mine's a little boring. I think the Bills will not take anyone tonight. I think they trade back and out of this first round. I think we've heard Brandon Beane kind of talk about this class and where it is, and I think their way they're going to have this draft graded, I think it's in their best interest to get more capital to work with without that second round pick.
I kind of agree, but I also think it might depend on how the board falls. Okay, so Joe, how about you? Give me a name that you think might be the first guy they take, whether that's a 26 or they trade back and it's still their top pick.
Yeah, I am also on team trade back because I think they are kind of in a great position where they're going to be right in the middle of that offensive line run, or even for Ty Simpson, but then that move back a little bit, maybe still stay in the first round. Malachi Lawrence is the one I keep coming back to from Central Florida if he's there, because he just fits every single thing they need. Speed, explosiveness, length, good run defender, and a lot of potential to be a starter for them.
So Malachi Lawrence, trade back. The other name I think you need to keep an eye on is Cassius Howell, also a pass rusher. From all of the things that I have read about this draft, he feels like one of the most pure pass rushers in the class. I don't know if he's going to be an every down player, but they already have Greg Rousseau, they already have Bradley Chubb, so maybe they try and strike lightning in a bottle. Once again, we shall see how it all plays out. The Bills scheduled to pick at number 26. We'll see if they ultimately do that when the draft begins coming up in just minutes right here on Channel 7. That is Joe Buscaglia. That is Elena Getzenberg. I'm Matt Bove. Thank you everybody for watching.